Good evening, everyone. I welcome everyone on our 53rd author interaction brought to you by Trends Literature Series. And I'm Neeta Aneja, and I'm the founder of Trends, which is a platform for art, culture, social, and literary experiences. It gives me great pleasure to announce about our guest today. He's an author, he's a transformational speaker, meditation expert, spiritual guide, mentor, and director of programs at Art of Living Foundation. He's none other than the very much loved and respected Swami Purnachaitanya ji, who has thousands of followers on social media, and I'm sure millions all across the world because he's touched them at one point or the other by his unique ways. So welcome, Swamiji. I have no words to describe how I'm feeling right now to have you grace our platform.
Thank you so much, Neeta ji. It's a true pleasure to be here. And in such a list of eminent authors, there's a lot of, I mean, it's an honor for my book as well.
It's a lovely book. I've just finished reading it and I'm totally inspired and motivated to do meditation in a regular way. So first of all, I would like to congratulate you once again on your lovely book, Looking Inward, Meditating to Survive in a Changing World, which has been published by Penguin. And as Gurudev Shri Ravi Shankar said, when the world around us is in turmoil, we need to look indeed inward. And meditation is the tool that can give us the much needed solace and inner strength. So coming to my question straight away, why do you say that your book is a personal guide to understand your mind and the need to meditate for a healthier and a happier life?
I mean, well, to really do justice to that question, I'd have to go into many topics that we have covered in the book. But I think in a nutshell, as we have seen in the last 1.5 years, and I think all of us here would have experienced that, is that many of the things that we were relying on in our lives for our sense of security, our sense of support, or our peace started shaking. Whether people suddenly losing their jobs, or there being a chance that they may lose their jobs, people who have been struggling to keep their own businesses afloat. I personally know some people who were not able to also. They were having such a wonderful restaurant business which was flourishing. Actually, it was growing, and they had to discontinue it simply because they were not able to keep up with the lockdowns and everything. In the same way, I know people who really rely on their social life, even whether it is just to blow off steam, to feel good, to feel comfortable. And suddenly they were told that they cannot go out, like with the lockdown, they cannot meet their people. I know people who have been struggling because they could not visit their parents, for example. People who are so healthy, but suddenly became very insecure about their health because of the coronavirus. So we see that many of these things that, of course, can always change at any point, like somewhere we all knew it, but it never really hit us or really struck us. And when people came face to face with this reality, that all of these things can change or are changing at any point, then it makes you very insecure. We see people losing their sleep, their peace of mind. And I have been practicing meditation for the last 20 years. I have been teaching it for over 15. And I've seen how beneficial it is as a practical tool to manage our mind, our emotions, to maintain or regain your inner peace. And during this time, we saw that it was all the more needed. And people became aware that, yes, I need to now learn something to deal with this, to learn how to deal with my mind and to find a new sense of security. And that true security can only be found inside, because that is the one thing that doesn't change. So I thought, we have been conducting these programs for so many years. The Art of Living has been doing so all over the world. But then I also know that not everybody may either come across the programs, not everybody may feel comfortable right away coming for a retreat or some other program. Many, including me, sometimes you like to explore at home, and what better way than a book, because YouTube videos is one thing, but it's not the same. And to do justice to a topic like this, I thought, okay, let me take some of that valuable experience that I have gained over the years, some of the insights, the realizations, the tricks, the tips, and put it together in a way that it is very relevant and useful for people, even if they may already have been meditating, but at the same time to make it accessible in a way that even anybody who is totally new to the subject can pick it up and really benefit during these trying times.
Absolutely. And it is definitely, and I must recommend everyone to read it. This is the book that we are talking about. It's absolutely easy read. It is absolutely, it's got a real flow. I must say you've written, keeping in mind everyone who will ultimately read your book. So, I mean, I know I'm diverting a little bit from the topic of the book, but, I've read about you and I would really like to share, I would request you to share your inspirational journey, perhaps maybe in brief, about how you came to Art of Living. How was it? And how did you realize at the very tender age of 16 that Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar is going to be your spiritual master?
Again, it's a big question. But for me, growing up in the Netherlands, there was you can say, a tinge of Indian culture, a little bit in my upbringing, because my mother was born in Delhi. Right. Her father was Indian, her mother was from Holland, but when she was very small, she came to the Netherlands with her mother. So she grew up there in Holland. She never went. I mean, she went once or twice to India to visit her father, but otherwise she was Dutch, you can say. But then maybe that was part of her roots that also inspired her during her university days to explore meditation, for example. So both my parents, while they were in college, they came across a meditation course, which was, of course, quite unique in those days in the Netherlands. But they got inspired, they did the program, and they liked it. So once in a while at home, also, they used to meditate when I was very young. I remember that. And growing up, I think there was always a bit of an interest towards the traditions from the East. So I remember even whether it was martial arts. I used to practice various Eastern martial arts, or just you come across a book with about Zen tea ceremonies, or you watch a movie about whether it is Shaolin monks or like the Karate Kid, and this whole concept of having a master, someone who has really mastered his skill or his trade or whatever it is, his subject, and that you can learn from someone like that, somehow really appealed to me. I thought, even like most people going to school, I used to feel that why do we have to learn so many things that I'm anyway not going to use? High school, you have so many subjects and you think, I'm not going to use this later. Why do I have to stuff this into my head? And so that idea that I know even in the Middle Ages in Europe also, it was a common practice that you will find a master of whatever trade it may be that you want to learn. And if he accepts you as his student, then you become an apprentice. You study with him for, who knows, 5-10 years. And then when you master that skill or art or trade, whatever it may be, then you go and practice that yourself. And of course, India is, I would say, the mother of so many spiritual traditions. It is a place that has really kept the Guru Shishya Parampara alive. And we see this in all the traditions that have come from the East. And somehow that pull was there, that even when I started learning a little bit about meditation, I thought I would like to find out. I saw my parents had sometimes done that. I wanted to know for myself. But then I wanted to learn from a real master, not just from, like you see a documentary on TV, you think, oh, it's interesting, let me try, sit with my eyes closed. I said, no, I want to really understand someone who is experienced. And that is also one thing that led me to go to a public lecture by Sri Ravi Shankarji when he came to the Netherlands, to Amsterdam in the year 2000. So when I heard about that, I thought, okay, someone told me that a spiritual master is coming from India. So I wanted to see that. So with my mother and my brother, we went there. And meeting him, seeing him there, I realized that this is something authentic. I've done the same in my book. What I saw him do there, and I've seen him do for all these years, where he's able to take such profound wisdom and practical wisdom, real practical tools, and is able to convey it in a language that anybody can understand. It's not very hi-fi, it's not very complicated, it's not intellectual, it's practical. And at the same time, it's very profound. So it is simple, but it's not simple. And that, for me, that was the sign that, okay, yes, this is what I have been looking for. And then I wholeheartedly went for that. In the sense, whenever there was an opportunity, I did some of the programs offered by his organization. And then I met him in Germany once when he was there, when I was completing my studies. And I asked him if I could come to India for a few years to go deeper into this knowledge. But after those few years, I realized that there is nothing I would rather do with my life than to keep learning, keep going deeper into this knowledge, and at the same time share whatever I can, that I can digest with people around the world.
So right, but how do you feel? What was his response to your book? I know he's released your book.
Well, I mean, it's a tricky question, right? Because to know the mind of a spiritual master is, you can only guess. But no, he's very, from what I can see, and what he told me is that, yes, he's very happy, very proud. And he's been asking me also once or twice after this, when we met, that, how's the book doing? How's it going? And he shared also, he said, no, this is one more way and that was, of course, also the idea behind it, to reach many more people in a time where it's really needed. We can make this knowledge available to them. And I think this is it's one more wonderful service we can do. So
right, absolutely. Coming back to your book, in the book you've mentioned that meditation is not a luxury, but a necessity. I must tell everyone that the book is divided into 7 chapters, and it is full of stories. It is full of wisdom sutras and exercises. So at the end of all the chapters, you'll find wisdom sutras, you'll find exercises, which are definitely very, very useful. And we definitely, as the book says, we definitely need to look inward for strength, focus, happiness, and resilience. So, Swamiji, when is the time we should really realize that the time has come for one to address one's own turmoils?
Personally, if you ask me, I would say that prevention is better than cure. Just today, I was interviewed by a newspaper also, and they asked me that, why is meditation required for healthy people? And, should a healthy person do meditation? But to me, that's like asking, okay, if you're healthy, should you have a healthy diet, or should you have a healthy lifestyle? I would say, of course, because you want to remain healthy. So in the same way, when it comes to turmoil, to mental challenges, meditation can help us to prevent them from arising in the first place. Even in the yoga scriptures, the yoga sutras of Patanjali, he says, Heyam Dukkham Anagatam, which means the science of yoga, which of course includes meditation. All of these practices can prevent the sorrow or the misery even before it arises. And if we look at our life honestly, you will find that most of our suffering is actually mental. We forget this many times. In Ayurveda also, they talk about this. They say that it's only about 5% where you suffer because of external causes, which could be you hit your foot, or you break a leg, or you have a scorpion that stings you, or a mosquito that bites you. Most of our suffering, our agony, our stress is mental. It's because we are worried about something, you're feeling anxious, or you're disturbed, or you're angry, or you're upset. And we have never really learned how to address that. People may tell you, just relax, don't worry, but just drop it. Why do you keep worrying about this? But how to do it? We have never learned how to do it. We have never learned how to manage our mind. And meditation is exactly that. It's learning how to, not just how the mind works and how to manage it, but even how to master it, how to go beyond the mind. And I think in today's world, where we are seeing, amounts of levels of stress that for many of us may be a new high, of course, we may not have lived through previous wars. Some people may be there, but not many. But otherwise, like the kind of, challenges that we were exposed to and insecurities during this pandemic, for many has been a new high, and that will make you either anxious or frustrated, or it can make you depressed. It can cause so many things. And here, this knowledge and these techniques can really, really help people.
So right, absolutely. And I totally agree with the fact that when you mentioned that prevention is definitely better than the cure. In the chapter 2 of the book, the chapter 2 is definitely one of my favorites, because you're talking about baggages that we carry from the past and how traumatized we feel if we don't let go of our past memories. So how do you really let go of past or drop the past when by default it becomes part of yourselves? Please elaborate on this.
So here there are different approaches, different ways. The beauty is that practices like meditation allow us to, I would say, clear some of that baggage on a subtle level. You go directly to the source. No? What could be a good example? It's like sometimes you can go on your phone or your computer, and you say, okay, clear the history or clear the cache, or clear your dustbin, or in your email you have this deleted folder, or so you're not going and checking exactly what all emails were there, or you don't have to delete them individually. You can just clear some of the memory and you feel much lighter. Another way is if you say that, okay, if we go intellectually, means consciously using the mind, that okay, how can you drop the past and how can you let go of the past? Then we have to wake up and realize that the past is gone. We've heard this so many times, but to really understand that whatever events we have gone through right now are no longer there, however great or however unpleasant they may have been. The only thing that is left is the impression in our mind. And if you look at them, this is a little subtle. I don't know if it's too much for this crowd, but as you have asked the question, let's go a little deeper. If you look at it, why do we only remember some incidents so vividly and not others? We do so many things. Every day you have so many experiences, but why is it that thing that happened 2 weeks ago or 1 year ago that can still disturb you? If you think about that person, if you hear that name, or it can keep you awake at night, it's because if you look closely, because we gave a lot of importance to that event for whatever reason. And in the book, of course, as you know, I've covered this there as well, where I make a distinction between, for example, someone on the road calling you an idiot. You're going home and someone from the other side of the road shouts at you and calls you an idiot. You don't really take it to heart. You think either they may have mistaken me for someone else, or maybe they are drunk, who knows, maybe they're having a bad day. But by the time you come home, you're fine, and you may have even forgotten about the incident. But if someone in your direct circle, maybe at home or in your office, says something unpleasant about you, or maybe you haven't even heard it, but someone says that they said something about you, it can really disturb us. So the only difference being that in the second case, we give a lot of importance. You think, oh, what do they think about me? What will they think about me? While the other person, you are not bothered. So we have to start understanding that in many, if not all of these cases, where we lose our peace, we lose our sense of comfort or ease, or just feeling safe and secure, that so-called causes that we blame for our insecurity or our discomfort, which are outside of us, are not the real cause. The switch is inside. So the beauty is, with the book, I am taking people on a journey to start exploring that, oh yes, the switch is inside. And when you know that the switch is inside and you start realizing how you can attend to that, it greatly empowers you, because it means that your happiness, your peace of mind, the way your day goes does not so much depend on the people or the world around you or the situations. It depends on how you have conditioned yourself, or how you are feeling inside, the world inside of you. And this is wonderful, because otherwise, as you know, it's like a gamble. If people are going to treat you nice today, you will have a wonderful day. If someone says something wrong or something doesn't go as planned, you will have a bad day. So then what is the guarantee that you will be happy, or that you will be able to really progress and move ahead in life?
So very right. In fact, all this and so much more in the book It has such small and very, very practical ways to handle your inner demons at times, this baggage thing, dropping the past. I think many of us face this problem. And I suppose by doing these simple exercises that you've mentioned in the book, and by reading the stories that you've mentioned, and you've given such practical advice that I'm sure every one of us who reads the book will be able to appreciate that very deeply. So, friends, you have to really, really read the book. One thing that you really mentioned, and you mentioned that a couple of times, that you say that the less you need, the fear, you're more free, you have more sense of freedom. In fact, I envied you in the book when you mentioned this story, especially about that you brought this bread and you do that a couple of times, same thing with a chocolate cup in your hand, and you go on the terrace there and you do it so many times over. I mean, that was really, I got so envious. I said, there should come a time when you're so free that you don't mind what you're eating, you don't mind, but you're enjoying the moment. So do let us know how does it feel to experience such freedom?
Again, it's a tricky question. I mean, you're good at this, I think, because if you really look at it, how do you convey an experience, until someone really, like if you have never tasted ice cream, maybe like, you can say, okay, Neeta ji, you're saying that it's cold, it's sweet, but until you actually taste it, how do you really know that what ice cream is or what it's really like? But one thing I can add to this is that even for me, it's been a journey of discovery where a few years ago, it must be maybe 5 years back now, something like that. I was working in the northeastern region in India, in places like Arunachal Pradesh, and we would travel to really interior places. So I stayed in villages where there may not even have been electricity or phone network. Staying in wooden house with the people, where they eat, sleep around a fire. Indigenous traditions, and I follow a vegetarian diet. So there, most of the food is non-vegetarian. Whatever we can find in the jungle, almost everything becomes a dish, and the whole local tradition is there. But then for me, that meant that for 6-7 days straight, I was having just the boiled rice and some boiled leaves, which is like a leafy vegetable they used to find in the jungle there. And one day it struck me. I thought, I'm sitting here in a place where, for Western standards, you can say there is almost nothing. It's so very basic, and I'm eating the same thing every meal, which is that boiled rice and that jungle ki pate, and I'm happy. So that doesn't mean that you say, okay, yes, let me settle down here, and I love to travel, and I definitely enjoy, whether it is a nice toast or idli dosa or whatever it may be, or a pizza. But that realization, suddenly it struck me that really, like, if that happiness which is available within us becomes so accessible to you, then you don't rely on any of those things outside of you for that sense of happiness or contentment. And as you said, that gives a great freedom, because it meant that even when I had to be there in that jungle for 1 or 2 weeks, I could feel comfortable there as well. And I think this is something that, of course, is I would wish for anyone, because it doesn't mean that you have to leave your nice house, your good food. It doesn't mean you cannot go for holidays or spend time with your friends or have a beautiful car. No, definitely not. But as I mentioned in the book, of course, it brings this beautiful shift in life where, instead of living your life as a pursuit of happiness, you start living life as an expression of happiness, where you can do the same things, but instead of doing it hoping that will give you peace or happiness, you can do it happily. And this is something that is our birthright. I really feel when you see people, and people are struggling, they think, oh, I can't wait until it's weekend, or I cannot wait until it is holidays, or even worse, no, I cannot wait till I retire. There are really people, they think, okay, when I retire, then I will be happy, or then I can really do the things I want to do. I have so many friends, even back home in Holland, who used to live for the weekend. It's like you hustle and you get through the week somehow, and then Friday night, okay, finally, whether it is just chilling out or parties or whatever it may be, but oh, now I get to enjoy. And we've not come to this planet to just enjoy for those few days. Life is so much bigger.
So right. Absolutely. This sense of freedom, I'm sure all of us need. And we just don't know how to get it at times. So I'm sure reading your practical advice and listening to you right now, many of us will understand that, the real happiness lies in small pleasures of life. There are four lines in the book which really made me think. And I hope you can talk about it. You mentioned that passion is like breathing in, and the other passion is like breathing out. It is letting go. So you need both in life. So how would you like to elaborate on it?
Well, again, of course, these are all big topics, but it's wonderful to see how well you have digested the book. That way, for me, I just want to add that here because I've been doing quite a few interactions, talks, interviews, and usually you get the same few questions where people say, okay, you tell something about the book, but for me as an author, I would just like to add here and really appreciate that, when someone really reads a book and digests, that means that it's a big compliment. So
I would say I did that for myself. I found it so useful, and I feel I've already changed after reading your book. So I think I was being very selfish here.
no, that is allowed, and it's for me, it's very encouraging to see that in quite a few of the interactions, actually, people have shared it, that they really enjoyed it, and including my publisher, that it was such a welcome read or needed during these times.
Yes.
And so to coming to the passion and the dispassion, breathing in and breathing out is the example he used here, because if you see, however much you like one or the other, you need both. Like even when we are teaching yoga, for example, breathing techniques, we tell them, if you really want to breathe in deeply, first you need to breathe out fully. Because if you don't breathe out fully, you can only breathe in so much. In the same way, when we look at a bow and arrow, if you want the arrow to go further, you have to pull it back more. It's only when you pull it back more that it can really go. And the same we see in our day-to-day life. We have so many dreams, we have goals, we have hobbies, we have passions. And many times, some of us, I have a feeling you're also one of those people, you really want to do something with your day, with your life. So you plan it that you say, okay, for example, till 5-6 o'clock, I have to do all these things. And then I'll have time to sit and do this or learn something new, or even if it's just spending time with your family, your friends. But then many times we see what happens is, by the time you get home, you're tired, you're drained. And then even though you really want to do those things, you don't have the energy or the enthusiasm or the battery power left, So we need to realize that rest and activity are complementary. You can only push yourself so much. And the same we see when you are fresh, when you're well rested, you are much more effective, much more efficient. The same thing takes you half the amount of time. And when you're really tired, it takes twice the amount of time. I see it time and again, even with my to-do list, So here, when people say, oh, I am too busy to meditate, or I know I'm supposed to do it, but I don't have time. That is an indication, I would say, that it's all the more needed, because the very fact that you don't have time means you're already overburdened, you're stretched too thin. And there, that 15-20 minutes of meditation can give you the rest and the clarity and the energy to attend to all those other things much more effectively and efficiently. And here, like I mentioned in the book as well, many people are not aware that 20 minutes of proper meditation can give our mind the same amount of rest as 4 to 6 hours of sleep does. Yes. So that doesn't mean that, okay, you meditate for 40 minutes, you don't have to sleep, because our body needs that rest also. There are certain physiological processes that will only happen in a state of rest. But we see many times nowadays that even after sleeping for 7-8 hours, people wake up and physically you may have rested, but mentally you don't feel fresh. You still have so many thoughts racing through your mind. You don't have that clarity, because nowadays the amount of stress impressions that we go through, that we are exposed to, is much more than we have been equipped to handle. So you need that intense rest for your mind to unwind, to settle, to center, so that again you have that clarity and that enthusiasm to do all the things you need to do.
And you mentioned time and again in the book that it is the practice which makes you perfect. And one of the questions which just came up on the chat box, and I was expecting it, that you need to definitely answer this. This is from Marina Singh, who's a life coach. And she says that, what is the right way to meditate?
Okay, good questions. I must say that. Again, I would say that, and this I've tried to do in the book as well, to approach it in a way where, there is not just one right way, because there are many techniques and there are many authentic schools, practices. So of course, even in the art of living, we have a meditation technique that we teach, but it doesn't mean, okay, that is the only way. People may be practicing other techniques as well. But yes, you can say there are certain indications or certain aspects of meditation that will allow you to see that, okay, am I really meditating, or is it maybe something else? And that doesn't mean something else is bad or is wrong. But if we talk about the real benefits that meditation can give us, we need to do justice to that. So in the book, as you know, I've dedicated a whole chapter also to the difference between mindfulness and meditation. Absolutely. Because nowadays we see that in many places the words are used interchangeably. I know in many corporates, they prefer the word mindfulness. Like even with me, I've had many times, not just in India, but abroad, even more so, where they would say that, we would love to have these programs here for our executives, but let's not use the word meditation. Can we call it mindfulness? So on one hand, I understand, because in some places there may be a cultural connotation or something else where people say, oh, maybe people will relate less. But if you really want to do justice, we have to realize that these are separate things. Because in mindfulness, many of the common mindfulness practices, it's about being mindful. So you become fully aware of what you're doing. You may take your attention to your breath, or you're walking with full awareness, you're eating with full awareness, doing anything with that full awareness. And that is a good thing. That is definitely an improvement, because normally our mind is so scattered. So that means you're more effective, you're more efficient, your mind is more calm. There are many documented research benefits of a mindfulness practice. But, and this is where it gets interesting, meditation is going beyond the mind. So in mindfulness, you're still engaging the mind. You're actively engaging it. You're doing something. While meditation, true meditation, is going beyond the conscious mind. And that is where that deep rest happens. That is where there is a whole, I would say, a new set of benefits that become available to you. And as I had mentioned in the book once, my master, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar, gave a beautiful example when he was interviewed by Vishen Lakyani, the founder of Mind Valley. When he asked Gurudev that meditation is becoming so popular in the West as mindfulness, so what are your comments on that? And he said, mindfulness and meditation are not the same thing. And he gave the example that mindfulness is like you drive home and drive the car into the garage, but then meditation is getting out of the car and getting into your living room or your bedroom. So the kind of rest and how you feel in your living room or bedroom is not the same as the garage. And if you say, no, but you feel like that in the garage, then it's not a garage, then it's your living room. So I have seen many times that people may have practiced some mindfulness techniques, and then they say, oh, it doesn't work for me, or it's not my thing, or yeah, it's okay. But then they think, okay, I've meditated, and they miss out on something there. Because I have experienced many times, even when conducting a program, which was an introductory session for people who may be very new to the practice, that in just 15, 20 minutes, people can experience such deep rest and relaxation, which is not comparable to 15, 20 minutes of just focusing on your breath or on what you're doing. So to come back to this question that how to meditate properly, I would say that one, this aspect has to be there, that the technique or however you're practicing allows you at some point to let go and move from effort to effortlessness. And Of course, in the book, I have given many steps, many ways. So again, to do justice to it, I would say to a question like this, the best thing is read the book because I've elaborately covered it there. But this will give people some indication.
And you've covered it very simply, very, very easy to do. People can really get into those exercises and everything. And we'll start the interactive round. There's some people who want to ask you the questions directly. But before that, I have one question. I have always seen you smiling and everything. And, you explain meditation so well. But coming to facing challenges in life, so what has been the most challenging moment in your life or the most transformational one? And how do you cope with ups and downs yourself?
It's difficult to pinpoint one incident, but maybe one thing that for me was in a way very transformational this is quite personal. It's a few years back when my mother passed away, and she was quite young. So it's not like she was very old. She was quite healthy, but then at some point they found something was wrong with her, and we thought it was not so serious, or not this serious at least, and they couldn't figure out exactly what it was. And to make a long story short, finally they found out that it was cancer. And she had had cancer once when I was very young. She survived it. It was a medical miracle also, the way she came through it. But then they found out that it had returned so many years later, and it was very aggressive. And I had the blessing and the good fortune that for those last, because it went quite quickly, but for that 1.5 months, 2 months, I was actually there with her. So even though for so many years I've been traveling all over the world, my master, Gurudev Shri Ravi Shankarji, had told me that this time you keep it free in your schedule because I have made some other plans for you. And I was very excited. He has himself made a plan for what he wants me to do. That's well, not a first, but it was unexpected. And at the last moment, he told me that by that time I heard that my mother was not feeling so well. He said, you go to the Netherlands, spend some time, be there for the family, and then you come back. And he told me to go for 2 months, and I was surprised because it's a very long time. Normally we can reach out to so many people, but I said okay, and family was very happy, of course. And after I reached there, it suddenly went very quickly, but it gave me the total freedom and the time and space to be fully there for her, to be there for the family. And I was very close with my mother. We had a very close bond, and for me, it was a very, I would say, intense experience. It was, in a way, like we spoke about this dispassion, in the book, like in detail also. For me, it was it became even more clear how an experience like this really makes you realize that life is so temporary and it's impermanent. And that really puts things in such a different perspective. So even though because of my spiritual practices and everything, the interactions I have with people, to a great extent that was there, but because this was so personal and it was the person I was probably closest to, it became even more solid. And it makes you realize that all those things that we otherwise get caught up with, that we spend so much of our time and energy on, that we worry about, or that we give so much of value to, suddenly becomes so meaningless because it's all silly things. And this, in a way, is a very powerful tool, I would say. And of course, in the book, there is an exercise also for this. There is a chapter where we go into detail, because it allows us to really take a step back and look at, okay, what is really important in my life? Rather than getting swept away by all the little do's on the to-do list, things to do, and your obligations and your duties, you say, okay, yes, if I only have, say, 1 week left or 2 weeks left, what is it that I really want to do in my life? And for most people, if you say, okay, I look at my current to-do list for the next 1 or 2, 3 weeks. And then if you say, if I would have 1 week left on this planet, in this body at least, what are those things that I would still really like to do? And you make that list. And if you keep them together and you look at it, the closer they are to each other, the more they match. To that extent, you are really living your life. And that is something that I think for many of us is very valuable, because that perspective can really free your mind itself from so many unnecessary worries and cravings and aversions and all of those things.
It's great pearls of wisdom. If we can imbibe even 1% of what you're saying, I think our life will be made. Before I move on to my interactive round, I have 2-3 people really waiting anxiously to directly talk to you. I would rather that you just tell me a little about which is your favorite part of the book. I know you must be having, this is a wonderful book. Like me, all the parts are amazing. And being an author yourself, I'm sure you would have loved each and every chapter that you've written. There's 7 chapters I've mentioned. So which has been the most satisfying part in the book that you've loved writing? That you go back and you think that, yes, this is what that really moves you to.
Oh, that is a difficult one. But I think one thing that is very dear to me, if I have to just, give you a chapter, is the chapter about inner peace.
Yes.
Finding inner peace. That is something that,
I think chapter 3 or something. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful one. I'll move on to the interactive round, and I have Sarla Garg with me. She has her own industry, but she is an ardent art of living devotee, and she's been a teacher of farming and holistic food, and does sessions of sanskar for growing children. And she's been a devotee for the last 19 years and also an apex member of Delhi NCR. Yes, Sarla ji.
Jai Gurudev. Good evening, Neeta. Jai Gurudev, Swami ji.
So nice to see you, Sarla ji.
Swami ji, I want to speak in Hindi because I think my feeling comes out through my stomach.
समझ गया. कोई बात नहीं, कर लीजिए.
I have done lots of sessions with you. Swami ji, I am chilling now because of with you, like Guru ji. गुरु जी कहते हैं कि जो पेड़ जितने फलों से लदा होता है उतना झुका होता है. That quality in you. मैं सबको बताना चाहती हूँ, मैंने आपको गुरु जी की तरह कभी भी विदाउट स्माइल और फुल ऑफ एनर्जी, मतलब कभी विदाउट स्माइल नहीं देखा, और फुल ऑफ एनर्जी इन एवरी सेशन. एंड दिस बुक इज नीता हैज आस्क्ड एवरी क्वेश्चन. मेरे पास बुक के लिए कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है, और ये बुक इज सो ऑथेंटिक फॉर मी. मेरे लिए बहुत ऑथेंटिक है, क्योंकि आई एम इन आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग. आई लव दैट बुक. और मेरे को सबसे ज्यादा जो चैप्टर अच्छा लगता है स्वामी जी, मैं बोलूंगी, ट्रू सेंस ऑफ सिक्योरिटी. आई एम फुल्ली सिक्योर्ड विद गुरुदेव एंड लाइक यू टीचर्स. बस मुझे एक ही बात बोलनी है स्वामी जी. आपके साथ मैंने जितने भी सेशन करे हैं, मैं चाहती हूँ कि आप हमें कुछ लोगों को सबको बताएं जो हमें बताया है. बहुत कुछ बताया आपने सेशन में, जिसमें है तो 3-4 बातें, बट और लोगों को भी क्वेश्चन करने होंगे, इसलिए मैं 2-3 बात आपसे बोलूंगी. जन्माष्टमी आ रही है. एक जन्माष्टमी के लिए आपका सेशन इज वेरी गुड. व्हाट इज द वैल्यू ऑफ जन्माष्टमी? तो नाउ हफ्ते के बाद जन्माष्टमी आ रही है, तो आप एक तो जन्माष्टमी के बारे में वैल्यू, कृष्ण जन्म की वैल्यू हमें बताएं. और एक आई लाइक योर ब्रह्म मुहूर्त वैल्यू. स्वामी जी, जो मैंने सेशन आपका सुना, ब्रह्म मुहूर्त वैल्यू, दैट इज अमेजिंग. तो ब्रह्म मुहूर्त वैल्यू and that sloka, कराग्रे बसते लक्ष्मी, कर मध्य सरस्वती, कर मूले गोविंदा, प्रभाते कर दर्शनम. आप इसके बारे में हमें थोड़ा सा, जो भी लोग जुड़े हुए हैं उनको बताएं.
अच्छा, ठीक है. ये तो लगता है कि these are topics that we may have to take up separately, because to do justice to that also.
One topic you can take, Swami ji.
Okay, let's see if we have time first, because we have a few more questions, no, Neeta ji, I think.
Yes. We have 2 more questions, but you can take up maybe one of the questions of Sarla.
So Janmashtami, if we just very short, because it's coming for those in India who are celebrating. The story of Janmashtami itself has a very beautiful, deeper meaning. Because if we look at the story, then Krishna was born in a dungeon, very dodgy place. Then he couldn't even stay with his parents because he had an uncle who wanted to kill him. So then his father had to take him across the river to Vrindavan to be raised by the gopis. And if we look at the symbolic meaning, they say that Krishna is our consciousness. No, there is a part of us which is untouched. That is why in the book I have touched upon this, saying that if you meditate, you are able to experience that there is a part of you that has remained the same throughout, whether you have been through very difficult things or not. No, there is a part of you that remains pure. And to protect that, it had to be taken to the gopis. Now, Yamuna, the river Yamuna, is a symbol for love. So it had to be taken across that. So where the love becomes devotion. Because Kamsa, his uncle, represents the ego. So when our ego, our limited desires and selfishness cannot reach, and that was the gopis. So that devotion, that love in life, the spiritual wisdom is what can protect us from the ego killing, or killing is a big word, maybe overshadowing our true nature. So in the book also, in a way, even though I've not used this kind of symbolism, we have spoken about this, that how to, despite all our, our insecurities, our desires, all of those things, how to reconnect with that part of you which is untouched by that. And that is that true security. Then you will find that whatever situations come on your way, you will not be shaken. You can really become unshakable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
And next we have, thank you, Salaj. Next we have Kabir Dev. He's an author, poet, editor, content writer. He's based in Assam. So he was also writing that he could identify what he'd been writing about, what you said about Assam and Arunachal
So
Pradesh,
lovely.
Northeast. Kabir, your question, please. And he's also an author. He's been writing books. He's already written 3 books which are available on Amazon.
Beautiful.
Yes, Kabir. Can you unmute yourself, please? Kabir. Please unmute yourself. Yeah. Fine. Thank you.
Good evening, Guruji. So I belong from Krishnamurti Foundation. So I follow a lot of spiritual readers and spiritual writers. And I'm very choosy in speaking spiritual books. So I chose you because whenever I have read a few of your parts in Google, when I went through your book, and I felt that this is something else. So I truly bought your book and I read it. So the first thing that I want to ask you, that we live in a very pragmatic world that is full of pragmatism, and in that world we want to cling to something so that we can feel alive. Now there are responsibilities also in our life, as our family, as our loved ones. They are highly responsible upon us. In that particular world, how can we actually detach ourselves so that we can attain a certain peace of mind? And is it really impossible to attain enlightenment without detaching ourselves from the people who we are associated with? And the last thing, that can we become a mystic or just like a mystic by staying in our family? Because because that is the thing that I always want to understand, that so many people are good mystics, but they are all mystics because they went away from their family or they are living in an isolation. But is it really impossible to become a mystic by living in our society as a person who is highly involved with his or her family? So these are my questions.
Nice questions. Again, very profound topics. Let me see if I remember all of it. If not, you can remind me at the end that I've not covered something. First of all, definitely we don't have to run away from the world or our responsibility or our family in order to get that spiritual realization, or whether you want to call it a mystic or a free person, an enlightened person. Because this is a beautiful way that once my master also was explaining, and I've come across as well, is that if we talk about renunciation or this approach, that the true sannyasa, the real renunciation, is not about taking a person out of the world. It is about taking the world out of a person. People can run away and sit in a monastery or in a cave, and they will be worried about what people think about them, or whether they really close the house properly, or what they're going to eat tomorrow. And then that doesn't make you a great saint or a yogi. At the same time, being able to live in this diverse world and do all your responsibilities without being shaken inside, that is real renunciation. No? And that is not easy. That is why people sometimes say, no, it's so difficult. Okay, let me first take a break. No, the same reason why we say sometimes it may be nice to go for a meditation retreat, because the setting will help you. If it's out of your house, out of all your daily chores, in a beautiful setting with the nature, it may be easy to really calm and settle. But for a meditation practice to become really established, you need to do it on a daily basis amidst your daily activities. Otherwise, it doesn't become compatible. And the thing is that if you want to say do justice to your relationships, I would say that detachment or the dispassion is actually more important, because many times we have this feeling that, oh, if I become too detached, or if you're not attached to people, then we think, oh, that means you don't care for them, or you're not available to them. While actually, if you look at it in any relationship, and I briefly mentioned this in the book as well, that the less you expect from the relationship, or the less you want to get out of it, gain from it, the more you can truly give to the relationship. And this is where many people fail, because they have so many expectations. They feel, oh, that the person doesn't tell me they love me every other day. They become insecure. And the more you demand that love, the more you actually destroy it. Because we all know, if someone keeps telling you, okay, show me that you really love me, or that you care for me, or you don't care for me, then that becomes another burden. And I've seen, like, for example, with many of our people, I may not be the best example, because I have, with the blessings from my parents and all, of course, but I have dedicated my life to serve people. So I am just roaming around. I don't have a house or much of in that way, you can say, a family responsibility. Maybe have taken a bigger responsibility. But I know so many people who have become much better friends, or social servers, or husbands, or whatever it may be, fathers, because of that spiritual growth. Because the more you realize, again, like I said, that the switch is inside, that you don't actually depend on anything outside of yourself for your sense of fulfillment, or peace, or contentment. And then what happens, because you don't have to do anything to feel happy or to feel good, you become available for the people around you, that you say, okay, what can I do for you? So, and we have many examples of saints and mystics and sages and yogis who were living a life where they had their family, they had their responsibilities, and at the time they had that quality. So I know usually the ones that maybe become famous are the ones that look like they have left everything, and they may just be sitting somewhere in the mountains, or but no, this is something that definitely is not contradictory. At the same time, the thing is that it needs the right guidance, because I also know that just doing your day-to-day things and in between trying to figure it out may be very difficult. So if you have the right guidance, yes, definitely, you don't have to run away from things to progress. At the same time, it's like you need a certain amount of space in order to start. Otherwise, if you every day you think, okay, I have all my job, my duties, my family things, and then in between you say, okay, let me take 5-10 minutes and do a little bit of reading or meditation. If you're trying to figure it out for yourself, that may be difficult. And this is one of the reasons also why I decided to write this book, because now there are so many people who realize that I need to maybe start meditating, or they're keen to learn a little bit more how their mind works, how to manage their mind. But then if you just go onto YouTube or you download an app, how do you really know that you're in the right track? You may be very sincerely practicing something for 20 years, only to find out that it's not really taking you where you want to go. So to empower people to at least have a foundation that will allow them to move in the right direction was one of the ideas. But what was your first question? I'm not sure if I answered that.
Means there is the one you have answered it already.
The last two I remembered. Yeah.
Yeah. So the one thing that I last want to ask you, that I was reading the Ashtavakra Gita that has been written by Guru Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. Uh, Ashtavakra himself doesn't follow this process of chanting, but you have said it in a lot of videos in your books also, that there should be chanting in one's life. And I too believe that chanting is just for ourselves, not to please the God, rather it is for our peace. But while on the other hand, if we see Ashtavakra or Buddha, they have themselves deny this process of chanting because through the process of chanting there have been many incidents of religious dogmatism. So how do you actually see this process of chanting in your life, and how will you want us to chant? So that last question, this is the last question. Yeah.
So I know sometimes in meditation also this, because it's you can say it's connected. No, in yogic traditions also it has a place. The repetition of mantras, use of mantras, the chanting, and in the case if we look at the Buddha, or I don't think he was against chanting. The only thing is he was very clear that he wanted people to focus on their own experience, and he was very practical. Like Buddha never denied God's existence or the existence of a higher power. He just said that I will not speak on it. Whenever people would ask him, he said, I will not, because like you said, in that time, there were so many dogmas, so many concepts, and people were becoming very ritualistic without getting the proper essence or the proper meaning. The same with chanting. If you just tell people, okay, you keep chanting, people can keep chanting 24/7 and their mind becomes very dull. So it needs to be done in the proper way and with the proper understanding. So mantras, yes, mantra is one of the wonderful tools to energize the mind, to settle the mind when it's not so steady. The same with pranayama, with the breathing techniques. These are very wonderful ways to prepare for the meditation. And mantras is a very deep topic. There itself, there are so many things we can do with it, whether it is from a medicinal purpose or from a spiritual perspective, or psychological perspective. So definitely mantras also have their place, as there are many beautiful practices. But in the book, I have not gone into it much because one, it's a very vast topic on its own, and it's not that without it you cannot start your practice.
I was actually so engrossed with you that after I read the book, I started watching your videos. So
yeah.
Because it was very enlightening.
I have another book that will come next year, which I had actually already almost finished when this book came in between, when Penguin approached me asked me to write a book like this. So there is a book, it will be my, actually it's my story, autobiography, you can say, where I have shared many of the mystical experiences and adventures also for this journey. So we can see next year, we'll have a nice, I think you'll enjoy that as well.
Gladly waiting for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Because of the time, Swamiji, I'll take one question. This is from Manisha Agarwal, and I think it's a very, very relevant question. She says that these days the youth somehow don't like to follow a spiritual master and follow the practices. So how to influence them, as you were self-inspired and motivated when you were young?
Well, to be very honest, I think youth have no problem in taking the advice or guidance of someone who really knows. They have a problem with following something without proper explanation or rationale behind it. Because I've seen many youths, they have an issue doing things just because they are told. Someone at home may say, oh, you have to do this puja, or you have to do this practice, or you should do this, that, and they will ask why. And many people don't have an answer. So then they'll say, no, because Guruji is saying, or because your grandparents were also doing it, or because this is the tradition, or because I tell you. And then they will rebel. This is very natural. For me personally, I'll be very honest, I'm very passionate about many of these practices, about the whole tradition. But still, earlier also, but even still today, I want to understand. So if someone tells me you do this, then I would like to understand, okay, but why do we do it? What is the idea behind it? And some things you may need to experience. You cannot explain or rationalize everything. Some things need to be experienced. But then for me also to really stand by it or to recommend it to someone, I need to first experience it for myself. so that I can say, yes, I know, or I've experienced, or I've understood this. That is why I can with conviction recommend this to you. And I think for many of the youths actually nowadays, there is a lot of interest in these practices, in understanding their tradition or learning more about spiritual practices, for example. It's more than ever, I would say. It's just that they're looking for something authentic and they want someone who can explain to them. And I think honestly that this is a very positive thing, because that will allow this knowledge to get revived. It allows it to become available to people, because many things have died out because of that. People passed it on without properly understanding it. And then because they didn't understand it, when someone questioned it, they had no answer and it was lost. And if we look at the Vedic tradition, if we look at the scriptures like the Upanishads, all of them are a conversation between a master and a disciple, where the disciple is asking that you please explain this. And the master will only teach when they ask the proper question. He said, I will not just give you this knowledge like this. You think about it, come with the proper question, then I will explain it to you. So asking questions and wanting to understand and discussing it has always been part of this tradition. And it is, I think, what makes it one of the most beautiful traditions in the world, because just following something because someone tells you has never been really healthy. There has to be that openness of discussion and openness to learn.
So very right. I'm sure a lot of people who are still with us, they would like to take a picture with you. So maybe everyone can please switch on their videos and be with Swamiji, even if on the East session right now. Yes.
But I would like to add again, Neeta ji, that because like I said, I've done so many sessions, of course, but you can, at the risk of maybe rubbing some people the wrong way, but you can see the quality of the questions and the interaction.
Thank you.
Really depends on the way it is done. So I think it is, because I also, of course, didn't know how it will be today, but it is really very nice. I'm also enjoying it, and it'll be lovely even to share with so many people, because you brought out some very nice things.
Thank you. In fact, this is being recorded and we'll be in 2-3 days putting it on YouTube, and I'll be sending you the link.
Yes. I see you have a nice collection there. But it's lovely. I can share it with so many people.
That'd be so nice. And thank you, Swamiji, for such an enriching interaction on your book, Looking Forward, Looking Inward, Meditating to Survive in a Changing World. And I must say it is so much important for today's context. I'm sure a lot of people feel transformed. They'll read the book. And definitely, I recommend this book should be really read. It is available on Amazon, Flipkart, and all the major bookstores. And a special thanks to Tisha and Penguin for connecting me to Swamiji today and making such a big difference on our platform.
Yes, and I hope that one day we'll get to meet in person as well. Of course,
very soon, I'm sure. I'll be really wanting to come to Bangalore and meeting you. And I'm sure all of us will meet together one fine day or in a physical meeting with you.
And I would love to hear from everyone as well. When you have a chance to read the book, do leave an honest review on Amazon or wherever you get it. I read those as well, and I would love to hear what your takeaways were or what you thought about the book.
Yes, and I must say that he's very, very, he really responds very well. So you write your review and I'm sure it'll get to him and he'll personally read them. Yes. Thank you, Swamiji, for giving us so much of your valuable time.
And thank you for the wonderful opportunity, Neeta ji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Namaste.